Hi guys, welcome back to Homemade Food Junkie. Today we are going to be growing our own sourdough starter from scratch. This is a very easy process. All you need is a little flour, water, and some thyme. The starter takes between 5 to 7 days to get started, so let's get going. For this project, we will need a food scale that is able to weigh in grams. Next, we will need some all-purpose flour and water. We are going to begin by weighing out 100 grams of all-purpose flour. We are going to weigh out 100 grams of non-chlorinated water. You can either use distilled water or you can use tap water and let it sit out for 24 hours while that chlorine evaporates. Go ahead and add the flour and water together. Stir until you get this nice, thick, kind of a sludgy texture. We're going to go ahead and cover this with a towel and place our starter in a nice, warm location, and this is going to sit until the next day. While that starter sits, it's growing the wild yeast that's found in the flour, and it's also growing lactic acid, which is the good bacteria in our air. So this is the next day. You can see it's still kind of a sludgy texture. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of non-chlorinated water. We're going to add this to 100 grams of the starter. So we're going to measure out what you have left over and add those ingredients to 100 grams. Place a towel on it and let it sit overnight again. We are now on day 3 of the sourdough process. We're going to remove the towel, take a look at the texture. It's still a little bit sludgy, which is perfectly normal. So again, we are going to measure out 100 grams of that starter, and then I add it back into that original bowl. Make sure you're tearing it between measurements so that you know you're zeroing out the scale. Add 100 grams of that flour and 100 grams of chlorine-free water. Place the towel back on and let it sit overnight again. So now we're on day 4, and this is the day you should start to see some changes in your sourdough starter. It should start to smell a little bit sour. You can see that there are bubbles that are starting to form. This is a very good sign, and that means our starter is becoming active. So we're going to go ahead and measure out 100 grams of that starter and repeat the process with 100 grams of chlorine-free water and 100 grams of flour. And this is how you're going to feed your starter every time you want to activate it. We always feed it in equal amounts. It's easy to remember that way, and it always is effective. So go ahead and place that towel back on and put your sourdough starter in that nice, bright, warm area. We are now on day 5, and you can see that there are lots and lots of tiny bubbles starting to form in this sourdough starter. So we are getting close to having an active starter. You're just going to keep continuing that process until your starter is bubbling and it can float in a cup of water. This is the float test, and before you make bread, you need to make sure that your starter can float in water. That means it's active enough and it has enough life to make a good loaf of bread. When you initially make bread with a brand new starter that you grew, it will probably be a little bit flat. New starters are weak, but as you keep using this starter and feeding it, it will grow stronger and stronger and stronger. I hope this video helped you guys out. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time at Homemade Food Junkie. Bye-bye.